find the location where this occurred, and then maybe there was some kind of center point where the energy was emanating from, and it would be interesting to kind of feel it. I couldn't really find a central point, like where the monk back in time achieved enlightenment. Uh, but and since I couldn't find that, I kind of wondered what was the process that he achieved enlightenment, because it's kind of coming to me that you can achieve enlightenment in a variety of different ways. So I kind of looked into, or just in my own mind, I was trying to like read history, if that's such a thing as possible, and I got a sense that this monk achieved enlightenment by owning or taking the smallest part of himself and combining it with all the parts of himself that are in the realms of consciousness, or in the layers of the heavens. So once he was able to somehow align all of these parts and kind of like own for himself all these worlds, then he achieved this in level of enlightenment. And you could say enlightenment is becoming full of light, if you want to just kind of keep it that simple. And then when he did that, the light of himself imbued the land and air kind of around that location. That evening, or that day, I continued to walk around, and I was still kind of in a buzz or in a charge with the recognition of kind of what I experienced at that place. And that evening, I was kind of charged also, but I did kind of fall asleep. But the next morning, I was really aware of finding like a part of the top of my head that was kind of numb. All of a sudden, I was keenly aware of it, and my hands were still buzzing, and I was starting to kind of sweat a lot. And the whole next day, after seeing all this on that monastery, the whole next day I just laid in bed, just trying to kind of get a handle on what I noticed and how it affected me. And it felt like a real kind of transformation or an adjustment for myself for this new insight. And sometimes when I talk about it, I kind of feel that same charge or feel that same experience. So it's, in one sense, it's kind of interesting to bring that back for myself, to re-feel that when I find myself talking about it. After 24, or after that day, then I was kind of able to put myself back together. So it didn't necessarily last for very long, but it was certainly transformational. The if we were to talk and kind of go into interesting stories about transformation, this Kyoto story is one transformation story. I have a few others, and then there's numerous kind of concepts that I put into the book that deal with a possible transformation for mankind. As a matter of fact, some of the things that I wrote about in the book is really similar to what I experienced in Kyoto. Some of the processes that people go through in the book. So it was funny to write a book about transformation, or understanding consciousness, or even understanding the story of consciousness, because we tell the stories about human history or the history of the microbes or animals on planet Earth, but nobody really tells the story of consciousness on Earth. So in the book, the characters experience some new level of consciousness, and it's their journey in trying to make sense of it all. There's other kind of insights that I've had along my road in life that could be interested in talking about. I think at one point you were asking another guest about suffering, and so I have something I could add to that conversation. And then one kind of dynamic I've been playing with recently, or trying to understand recently, is that there seems to be four stages of life. And I guess one of the reasons I'm thinking about this is because I'm suddenly at an empty nest and encountering another stage of life. Kind of, do, do I go do I do I do I go into my later years kind of trying to be the wise man, or do I just kind of repeat what I did as a younger person? But there seems to be four stages of life, and each one of those stages for women is marked by a change in her body. So so the woman becomes the young girl, and then at some point she transitions to being kind of the princess. It's just you could use another term other than princess, but it seems to be fitting in our Western culture. And then at some point, her body changes again, and she becomes the queen when suddenly she has kids of her own, or subjects. And then later in life, her body changes once more, and then she becomes the wise woman. Well, men don't have a physical change that transports them from one kind of phase of life. So one thing we could talk about is maybe what's what occurs within men to get them to move from being the prince, or the boy, the young boy, to the prince, to the king, and then ideally in older age to be the wise man. Some men can go through this dynamic, competing with the father. Other men just kind of attach themselves to a female, and then kind of follow her stages through life, and they kind of just muddle through. So there's interesting kind of exploring why there's no stages for men specifically. And I get there's physical changes that occur within a man, but there's nothing that dramatically shifts him from one thought process to another. So those kind of ideas are interesting to explore, or just talk about, or just kind of share minds with. Recently, it came to my awareness that eventually war would end for the human race, and I was kind of looking for some reasoning on why it would end. And what came to me is that when you primarily live in the body consciousness, and you're kind of governed by the laws of nature, and some of the laws of nature is energy is always being, something's always being created and something's always being destroyed, and we are that energy is then repurposed. So no energies are ever really lost, but we're always creating and destroying, kind of in nature. So when you live in just the body personality, or just think of yourself as a body, you don't really think of yourself as a spiritual self, then you're governed by the body laws. So then war makes sense, because every war is primarily about one thought system replacing another thought system. And you could say that we've been governed in evolution by wars. So it came to my awareness that we started living as spirit, and maybe we're governed by different laws, and maybe spirits or spiritual consciousness is essentially like a new world that in which you're able to transcend the natural laws. And so then if we're able to transition to being more spiritual, then, and it's governed by new laws, then we wouldn't need war. And kind of like where my story started here at the clairvoyant program, and learning to process. If you were more spiritual, then you as an individual would be able to process your journey or exploration of self, and we wouldn't need these kind of collective wars to shape our spiritual evolution. So it'd be interesting to talk more about this. Another thing that's kind of come to my awareness is when you just live in the body personality, you kind of live in a single world of just the physical is validated. So there's a lot of dual worlds around us that allow us to kind of